Welcome back to The Explainer. So if you've been paying any attention at all to the 2025 job market, you've probably noticed a massive disconnect. There is this huge gap between what graduates expect and what employers are actually experiencing. Well, today we're tearing down the job readiness illusion. We're going to look really closely at why so many smart candidates feel wildly unready for the workforce, and honestly, more importantly, how you can completely bypass this trap.
Okay, let's dive right into this. 48%. That's our starting point today, and frankly, it is a shocking reality. 48% of 2025 graduates feel completely unprepared to even apply for entry-level jobs. Literally almost half. I mean, think about the years of time, the intense late-night effort, and the tuition dollars spent, only for graduates to reach the finish line and feel entirely unready to step onto the professional track. It's wild.
And that feeling of being unprepared, it translates directly into some pretty harsh real-world results. Only 30% of graduates actually secure full-time roles in their chosen field. That means the remaining 70% absolutely miss the mark. So this isn't just a few individuals struggling with interview nerves. This is a profound, systemic problem that we really need to solve. We have to ask ourselves, why is the gap between academic preparation and the professional world so impossibly wide?
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the incredible epiphany hidden right inside the statistics. Get this. 77% of graduates said they learned more in their first 6 months on the job than during their entire undergraduate education. Usually, analysts use this exact data to declare that academia is totally failing us. But let's invert that logic for a second. If 6 months of actual work teaches you more than 4 years of school, well, it proves that this readiness gap closes incredibly fast once you're in a real environment doing real work. The gap isn't a permanent deficit of your capability. It's just evidence that school and work measure totally different things.
All right, so let's break this down. Section 1, Target A versus Target B.
The core reason so many smart, hardworking candidates feel unprepared despite trying so hard really comes down to what they are actually aiming at. Think of it like this. There are two very distinct preparation targets in any job search. Target A is all about getting hired, optimizing your resume, practicing interview questions, rehearsing those star stories. But then you have Target B, which is about doing the actual job, understanding real tasks, knowing what a good practical output looks like, and demonstrating you have the capability for those crucial first 90 days. Most candidates spend 90% of their time aggressively preparing for Target A, but employers and skilled interviewers, they are aggressively assessing for Target B. You might pass the early screenings with Target A, but the second a technical demonstration or a case study begins, you're totally exposed.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that when candidates fail to bridge that gap, it's not because their resume font was wrong or their handshake was a little weak. 56% of unprepared graduates specifically cite job-specific skills as their biggest gap. And these missing skills, they live entirely over in Target B territory. A university degree didn't give them to you, and simple interview prep just cannot magically create them out of thin air.
Moving right along to Section 2, the 3 hidden gaps. So to solve this massive readiness issue, we need to realize it's not just one giant monolith you have to leap over. It's actually 3 distinct problems operating simultaneously. First up is the perception gap. This happens when you overestimate your readiness in areas like leadership and professionalism simply because you don't have a professional reference point. For example, data shows students often overestimate their proficiency in these areas by nearly 30 percentage points compared to how employers rate them. I mean, you might think you're an executive leader because you managed a campus bake sale, but the corporate standard is a completely different ballgame. The cure here is external feedback and real calibration, not just generating more false confidence.
Second is the translation gap. And guys, this one is incredibly common. You actually possess real, genuine experience from a super difficult academic project or part-time work, but you completely fail to articulate it in the language employers are listening for. The fix here isn't running out and scrambling to get more experience. It's simply learning to translate the valuable experience you already have into the specific capability language that employers use to measure candidates.
Third is the assessment gap. This happens when you prepare against a really vague internal standard rather than a concrete, testable benchmark. You can't just walk into an interview vaguely thinking, well, I'm pretty decent at data analysis. No way! You must test yourself against the actual standard of the target role. That means knowing exactly what they need, like, say, possessing intermediate SQL skills to build a specific reporting dashboard from raw data. You absolutely need a concrete benchmark to know if you're actually ready.
Now for some detective work. Section 3, the $4,500 clue.
If we know these 3 gaps exist, How do we find out exactly what employers are secretly looking for when you walk through the door? And this brilliantly illustrates the point. $4,500. That is the exact amount HR leaders budget per new hire just for remedial training. And just to be clear, this isn't for some advanced leadership seminar down the line. This is the immediate upfront cost just to bring a brand new hire up to the absolute baseline of job readiness.
Let's unpack this fantastic clue. That $4,500 goes toward covering very specific things. We're talking role-specific technical skills that just aren't formally taught in school. Proper organizational communication, understanding how your specific function connects to broader business revenue, and maintaining professional behavior under actual accountability conditions. The incredibly empowering takeaway for us here is that all of these skills are entirely learnable. And more importantly, they are completely simulatable before you ever get hired, as long as you know what you're trying to simulate.
Which brings us to Section 4, the 4-step fix.
So how do you actually simulate this real environment before day one? Here is a highly actionable 4-step diagnostic sequence you can use right now. Step 1. Define the role's actual first 90-day standard. Go to Glassdoor, look at LinkedIn posts from hiring managers, find out what good entry-level output really looks like. Step 2. Test yourself against a concrete task. Find a public data set or draft a client email in a timed session without any reference materials. The output here gives you real evidence, not just a feeling. Step 3. Honestly map your gap to the 3 types we just discussed. Is it perception, translation, or assessment? And finally, Step 4. Close the highest impact gap first. Sequence your work based on what will appear earliest in the hiring process, not just what feels the easiest to tackle.
Now, this isn't just some nice-sounding theory. Organizations actively shaping the future of work, like CloudHire, utilize this exact framework. As their success team explicitly states, the work they do begins with exactly this diagnostic sequence to build a role-specific readiness map. They completely bypass those generic, fluffy skills audits in favor of actual, testable capability building measured against the real-world standards of the roles their candidates are targeting.
And when you run a real skill assessment like this before your search even begins, it naturally carries through into every single part of the hiring process. Your applications become precisely targeted because you actually know what you can execute. Your interview answers transform from rehearsed, generic descriptions into specific, confident, grounded answers. You aren't just telling them you can do the job, you have the tested capability to back up every single word.
Remember, the readiness gap is real, for sure. But as we've seen, it closes incredibly fast once you start doing the actual work. You absolutely do not have to wait for your first day on the payroll to begin that process. Simulate the job, test your capabilities against the real standards, and close that gap right now. So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to drive your strategy forward. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, are you actually ready for the job, or are you just ready for the interview?